But thank you again. I'm just so happy and pleased to be here with all of you, and it's really a gift to get to spend the day and listen to the panelists and have time to talk with folks during the breaks. Really is just very heartwarming. I'm truly honored, so thank you for having me, and really just so want to thank each of you for showing up today. Since South Carolina, the state of South Carolina joined the Alice movement, I'm proud to say that we've continued to grow. And the movement has really just been expanding. And now we have Alice partners in 39 states and the District of Columbia. And we just decided this summer with my board and our leadership team that we are going to get to all 50 by 2028. And so we're really proud of that and really excited that South Carolina is part of this with us. It's been incredible today, just really music to my ears to hear so many examples and to witness the incredible way that Alice data is really fueling very big goals, 15,000 families, tons of innovation, all the technology and all of the connections, and also just the way that you've engaged what we call sort of non-traditional partners, and really the entire business model for this United Way and all of the way that you all are engaging is truly, truly incredible. It's something that I think I dreamt about when I first came to this United Way. I joined the team over a decade ago, and what brought me there really was Alice. But I knew that it was an opportunity for us to figure out how we can action the data. Our United Way at the time was from one of the wealthiest counties in the country, Morris County. And we were wondering really what was going on because there were so many issues and challenges in our county and our community. But we knew that the way things were being measured around poverty wasn't accurate. And so that's really how Alice was born, because despite a low federal poverty level in our community, we were seeing individuals and families turning up at soup kitchens and food pantries, really struggling to make ends meet, despite working the majority of jobs that we all rely on in our daily lives. So when I saw what United Way was doing, I knew I had to get involved. Because for the first time, there was an organization that was really quantifying the true extent of hardship and giving these families proper recognition. I was fortunate enough to dedicate really my whole career to working with Alice families. I spent over 20 years working directly with families in after-school programs throughout New Jersey and New York City. And I saw how hard these families were working, many first-gen families working, and they could not make ends meet. I also feel Alice in a really deep, personal way. Let's see if the slides will transfer. Maybe not. But as I was saying, I felt it in a very deep, personal way, because my parents were Alice. I grew up in an Alice household, and of course I didn't know it at the time. But when I look back, I know how hard my parents worked. You see, my dad had immigrated to the United States from India. My father's from the state of Gujarat, Ahmedabad. And he came here to study with intentions to, do a couple years, get his degree, and go back to India and do the right thing, as all oldest male children would do in an Indian family, get married and take care of his family and bring peace and prosperity to his family. But instead, my dad met my mother, who was Irish, living in her grandmother's boarding house in the middle of Newark. And they met, got engaged, got married, had a baby in 14 months. And so their plans were very, very different than both of their families thought for them. So my parents were really on their own. So this is a picture of me with my dad on the right and my mother on the left. Eventually, things seemed to settle, and both my parents worked a lot. My dad, as I mentioned, was an engineer, and he worked for Mattel, the toy company, 9 to 5 in the office, and then would quickly change and go work on the factory floor at night and get home and do the same thing the next day. My mom was a school teacher and also took in office work at night to help make ends meet. But they were really lucky because they did have my mom's parents nearby who were able to step in and help in between both of my grandparents still working. So this is a picture of me in my nanny and pop-up's kitchen where I spent a lot of hours in their small 2-bedroom, 1-bath home. And this picture is significant because of that little high chair that I'm in. You see, that high chair was a typical story of my grandmother because she found that on the curb in the neighborhood. And she decided that, there's nothing that a little bit of a spot of bleach can't fix, Kiran, right? And so I grew up as a baby in that high chair, my brother, other cousins, and that story really is kind of at the centerpiece of how I grew up with my grandparents. And to this day, my kids, who are now 24 and 25, literally tease me incessantly because I'm the person who buys the chicken from Costco for $4.99, and we get like 7 meals out of that chicken from Costco, right? So my parents, despite the hardship, despite the challenges, they were really fortunate because they did have my grandparents. And we know, all of us, we know from our work that that's just not the case for so many of our Alice families. I know how lucky I was, but we know across the country, and we know here in Charleston, that we're talking about 55 million households in the United States are Alice and in poverty. So that includes about 914,000 across the state of South Carolina, almost 1 million, and then about 130,000 here in your Tri-County region. So when I became CEO in March of 2020, I was determined that we were going to turn the data into actionable insights that would fuel lasting change for Alice. I think about that $55 million number every day. And we've witnessed numerous examples, so many brilliant things discussed today, but we hear all of these examples across the country, and I'll tell you about a few of them. Oh, here we go. Okay. So in Tennessee, West Tennessee, Ford Motor Company is undertaking the largest electric vehicle manufacturing plant in the world. And they have plans for what they're calling a 22-mile impact zone, where they're going to revolutionize one of the state's most rural areas, one that has really struggled with a lack of good-paying jobs. And the consultants from Ford, guess what they're using to help determine need in the community and how to ensure that families are not boxed out? They're using the Alice data to really help figure out data on jobs, housing, wage, community resources. And they've partnered with the United Way there. Our good friend, Matt Marshall, at the United Way of West Tennessee is leading that. This follows another example, a company you might know something about. A few of us had some Diet Coke at lunch today, but Coca-Cola Bottling Company United. They're the second largest privately held bottler in the United States. And they consulted the Alice data, the wage tool, specifically the wage tool, when they benchmark a new pay scale for their workers. And then finally, at my United Way, we developed something called Alice at Work. You may have heard that phrase a few times today. So through this interactive, data-driven program, business leaders are gaining insights into the challenges that face Alice employees. And then they come together to create action plans to drive results. One example is a company called Norwest Cap. They're part of the CAP agency network across the country. They're a fellow nonprofit, 350 employees. They went through the program with us. And their CEO told us Participating in Alice at work motivated me and opened my eyes to do more. So here's a CEO in the work with us, and they benchmark where their employees were relative to Alice. And one of the first things that they did, they revamped their entire 403B, their 401k, their retirement savings program. And they removed the requirement that you have to match. They had budgeted for the employer contribution anyway, so they're providing that. They took away the match requirement. And in just 1 year, 90% of the employees were now savings for retirement. Alice at Work is fueling change not only in New Jersey, but across the country. Businesses are reaping the rewards of improved employee retention and increased worker engagement. And the communities where they're based are ultimately strengthened. In the last year, Alice at Work has partnered with 83 companies in 10 states that employ over 18,000 workers, and really working to develop strategies that build stronger, more supportive workplaces. So if you ever find yourself thinking, gosh, this is so overwhelming, the needs are so deep, the 55 million, just remember, we can come together to tackle this. And I'm so pleased that I was able to hear so many examples and clearly the bold goal here at the Trident United Way that's helping us get there. So I have to give a little pitch to what's coming next. An opportunity for you to come together and learn is the 2026 Alice Summit that will be held in Miami in January. Alice champions from 39 states will be coming together to share best practices and resources. The team here at Trident will be presenting along with United Ways and other leaders from 55 different communities. I think it's an opportunity that is rare because so often we come together and we focus on one aspect of our work, or we think, just about fundraising or just about messaging or, specifically around service delivery. But what's powerful about the Alice movement and the summit is that we bring all of those pieces together. I think it's a huge opportunity to really think about how we can engage, as I mentioned earlier, those non-traditional partners. And I think you're doing that here. You have so many examples of folks in the room coming together. Where I am. So just a little more teaser about the summit. We were really fortunate last time that we had Tiki Barber, former NFL Giant, sports legend, is part of the Alice movement. He chairs our National Alice Advisory Council, and he donates 3 of his days of his schedule to us. So he's coming back to MC again, along with his brother Rondé, who was just installed into the Hall of Fame and is in the Tampa area as a former Tampa Bay Buccaneer. So we're excited about that, right? It's always fun to have a little bit of celebrity energy around our work. I think there's one last slide with the QR code. So thank you for indulging me. I hope I'll see some of you in Miami. I know some of the United Way folks are registered, but I do think that it's an opportunity for us to really come together and build momentum around this national effort. And the Trident United Way, you all are at the center of it. I love the comment from the panel from my new friend sitting with me. She said, data for data is useless. And I really appreciate the way you framed that and that you just said it. Because I think so often us in this work, especially us practitioners and quasi-researchers, we're afraid to say that if we don't take action, the data is pointless. And I was fortunate enough in April of 24 to speak at a roundtable at the White House on the nonprofit workforce. And one of the things we talked about, and I tried to emphasize, and I'll leave you with today, is, and it really speaks to the quote from earlier, is when we begin with data, that's what grounds us, right? That's what informs us. That's what brings us together. And then when we go through the process of figuring out what needs to change because of the data, The trust is at the center of that. And then ultimately, if we do our jobs right, we end up with communities that are strong and vibrant and powerful. And that's where the magic happens. And that's where it doesn't matter what's happening anywhere else, but you know that you've done everything you can to take care of your community, because data and trust and community come together. And that's what the Alice movement is all about. And I'm so delighted that Trident United Way is a leader. I'm so glad the state of South Carolina is with us. And I look forward to hearing and seeing and experiencing all the good things that are to come as you get towards those 15,000 families. Thank you for having me.